back to episode 21, 22?
22.
So we've done
22,
so many
let's go.
episodes, I can't even recall the number. 22 of the Synapse Pod. We have our main guys here today with us. The king of entropy, the king of spontaneity, and the king of consistency. Be with us, Ayush, Paras, and Manik. Right, so today guys, want to discuss a couple of things. The new space launch which India was about to do. Today's topic is about to be space tech, a little about space tech, and then general. So India was about to launch this manned satellite, manned spacecraft called, and this mission is called Gaganyaan, which got delayed. So that's something new and big. This is a big foray by India into the space tech, where it's going to launch its own rockets. So what do you think about that? The mission, as far as I know, the mission has been on since approved. Like it went first into approval in 2008, got its official approval in 2018. It was a 10,000 crore budget. Finally, there were plans to launch something in 2020, which got delayed because of COVID. Now 2022, it was supposed to be launched now, but again it's been delayed to 2024.
No, they kept denying that it won't get delayed because of COVID, but apparently it has happened delayed. It is delayed now.
Yeah. So 2024 mid is when now they're telling maybe they send a humanoid called Vyomitra, which is going to record basically will have the vitals as a human being and will record the biometrics of people who go up into orbit 400 kilometers up. So what do you think about this? Do you think India is really serious about its space tech as an industry? Because we know some startups have been funded. So any one of you guys can pitch it off. Like Ayush, what do you?
So right now what's happening is there are a lot of private companies that has entered the space tech in India. So I mean ISRO was also very supportive of the fact that they want to kind of be as a launch pad for different private companies to come and build on top of what they have already built or use their infrastructure to do things that they are maybe not doing right now or it's far-fetched in the future. For example, like ISRO itself has a very audacious future goals. Like they want to explore beyond Mars, Venus, and different other planets they want to explore. Then they want, as you said, like they want a man to land on the moon. So these are the kind of audacious goals they have. In parallel, what they have been doing is in the past, over the past decade, they have been launching satellites and not relying on other countries like Russia and different other countries to launch their own satellites or payloads, and instead they are taking the payloads of other countries and commercializing the launch process through Indian orbits. So that is what they have been doing in order to like keep the commercially viable, so the whole process commercially viable, and in turn keep doing the ongoing research. This combined with the foray of private companies in this ecosystem is what will propel the whole ecosystem forward. It is like NASA and SpaceX and different other countries and other companies that have got into the space, and we see now that how SpaceX has benefited from NASA and NASA has benefited from SpaceX as a whole. Since the whole ecosystem has grown. So which is a very positive thing. Like one company here in India has raised fund $51 million, $68 million from Singapore government, Indian governments, and different other.
This is Skyroot.
Skyroot, correct. So yeah, I mean that's a very positive development that I have been seeing. I mean I also got in touch. I mean somehow I was involved in one of the project that was working for some of the sensors which was being used in the rockets that's going to land on Mars like 9 years back. So that was interesting to meet people from ISRO and Avinash and I actually met a lot of people from ISRO back then. So that was very interesting. So
Actually, on a very specific note, now that we speak about, you guys remember the Google Lunar X Prize, which happened?
Yes.
$5 million.
Mani, explain a little about the Lunar X Prize.
Yes, Project Indes. So basically, the Google Lunar X Prize was a $30 million X Prize, which was divided into 3 missions. where you had to, within a certain budget, be able to send your manned mission, what is like a Chandrayaan, to moon, and to be able to uncover the secrets of moon. And they had to do it within a stipulated budget, and the overall prize money was 30 million, which Google was sponsoring it. There were 3 finalists. One of them was Project Indus, which is India's biggest hope. And I think so. What these guys managed to do, that they've, out of I think 100 different agencies and everyone else in the world who applied for it, these guys managed to make sure that the rocket was first viable to go into the space. Second, it was viable to land. I think the only place where they faltered was the propulsion system that needed to be built. That's where Indus lost their overall idea. The propulsion system, they couldn't like fine tune it because of the funds. And this is back in 2015-16 is what I'm talking about. Because that time the Indian space tech was not, there was just ISRO. There was no Indian space tech.
Yeah.
They were the first guys in the Indian space tech. And almost every other company which is formed beyond it has Project Indus people. And I met those guys because we were like, because of the X Prize thing back then. And those guys guided us so much back in the day. I still have that guy's number. He's the aeronautical engineer from IIT Kanpur, I think. Fantastic guy who built it out. Justin, that's his. I'm not sure with the names. I'm really poor with names. So, but shout out to those guys.
Makes sense. So I also read that the Indian space tech industry is poised to be a 13 billion industry, for $13 billion by 2025, and right now it's somewhere around 2.5 billion.
I read 77 by 2030.
77 by 2030. So do you think like the main kink of the Indian space tech is going to hit as soon as Elon gets its SpaceX to India, or we build our own rocket
So right
technologies?
now, out of the market, like $90 billion market right now is for the space launch service.
India is the world space launch vehicle, right? Because it's
But India has only captured like 2 to 3% of that 19 billion.
Also, it's mainly driven by government, so I don't see a lot. To be very honest, I only know very few Indian startups who were well funded into the space tech, and they are divided into multiple categories. One is like satellite creation.
So they're doing low Earth orbits.
Low Earth orbit satellites,
So launching the satellites into low Earth orbits, LEO that they call, and a lot of them are making cryogenic engines, like sustainable cryogenic engines.
So what is a cryogenic engine I use?
So is the best person to explain.
So if you see this movie called Rocketry, it's a movie by R. Madhavan. I think everyone should see it. Of course, there are doubts on the claims that the movie makes, but it very well explains that there was a point of time in Indian space tech where there were 2 key people who were leading missions. One was, of course, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who was focused on solid fuels. Like the propulsion engines had solid fuels. Other was cryogenic technology, which was basically gases condensed as fuel into liquid forms. So India didn't have that tech at that time. Of course, cryogenic engines are much more powerful, can last longer, so they can help you hit the kind of velocities that you need to go to higher orbits, or maybe escape velocities also. So India had worked to acquire that technology from Tashkent and everyone, so they did some missions. So yeah, now cryogenic, then, so according to the movie, India was far ahead of any other country with respect to cryogenic engines. ISRO was far ahead, but then some controversies happened, of course. Like you said, 10 years to approve a project, such red tape protocols, etc. came in, so the tech got delayed. But now it's making it seem back. Like all these startups that you mentioned, Skyroot, or I was reading about Agnikul, which is doing this rocket called Agniban. Love the names, by the way. Like they're really putting the Indian branding on the global map. And like Sputnik is Russian, so like you say Sputnik, you know what you're talking about. So all this Indian nomenclature, I think, is doing good only on the global level with respect to India's branding in space tech. Probably a lot of it is also to please governments. So fine, no problem.
On a very similar note, what I read was Rolls-Royce has also come up with their first cryogenic engine.
Rolls-Royce should. Rolls-Royce is the god of engines.
But guys, you know what? Just to add some idea about rocket engines. I happen to have some knowledge about that. First, solid state engines, first phase. Second phase was cryogenic engines, right? Which are liquid fuel. But to be very honest, these are massively inefficient because they have massive payloads which need to be taken to lower Earth orbit, and that fucks up your unit economics. Then I read about ion engines. What happens is,
Nuclear power.
so I read this in this book called The Future of Humanity by Michio Kaku. Ion engines are essentially highly compressed gases. You separate the ion out of the gases, the ions rotate, and then so what you exactly see in Star Wars, right? The blue light which comes out like a flame. It leads to no emissions. The real emission is literally just water from these ion engines. So these are second phases. There are some startups in US. I also researched about it. There are some startups in US which are funded on ion engines. They are supposed to hit by 2030. And then the fourth phase, which is going to come after 2040 to 2050, is going to be your nuclear engines on rockets, which is essentially going to be fusion or fission, any of these two. And then it is the last phase, which is somewhere going to hit about end of this century, by the 3000s. Those are going to be antimatter engines. Antimatter is nothing but just opposite form of matter, which is very tough to extract. Like a gram of antimatter would cost trillions right now. As soon as it touches with the real matter, which is just has a opposite property, just like in quantum mechanics, every electron has a positron or a negative electron, or there are always antiparticles. As soon as matter and antimatter hit, they annihilate and release pure energy.
Is this theoretical or has it been tested?
Antimatter is real.
So it has,
but engine built out of antimatter is theoretical right now.
Higgs boson was one of the first steps to figure out antimatter, and that's what the sun hydrocolloid kind of figured out.
Got it.
So these are essentially the types of engine which can form. And now I feel like successive industries are going to come up on different kinds of engine. It's just like technology, like in cars, right? Combustion.
You know what's
double combustion.
Amongst all of those things, we still have to give a shout out to ISRO, because ISRO, the amount of budget which they have and the amount of rockets which they send out is insane. And the reason why they cover up their budgets is because of the 2% of the world's payload. Because what they do is they take engines from Russia, Sputnik engines. Almost every ISRO rocket is based on a Sputnik engine, and they have their own structure on top of it. But for us launching every 10 satellites, I think we launched 100 other satellites for the world.
Yeah.
We have even launched SpaceX satellites.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that if we are hoping that Elon Musk is going to change things, but ISRO is launching SpaceX satellites for cheaper than Elon Musk is himself.
Yeah, actually,
India still has the largest constellation of satellites of their own.
Who?
India.
Yeah.
In the orbit.
Oh.
Yeah. Gagan network, and there's one more name of the network. So they have the most dense, I don't know, but the largest number of satellites in the orbits.
Yeah, but I still feel the Indian space tech is in very infancy right now.
Because of the sorry,
go on.
I'm just coming in from a point of view, the amount of kids who are taking up engineering in space tech. So engineering or just studying about physics in general, about the space itself, is not a very lucrative field in India right now. So if you don't have the younger population coming in and building and studying upon it, how do you see startups expand?
No, but see, mechanical engineering is very big in India. So mechanics in general is very big.
I mean,
right now space tech is primitive.
I think
Not really.
space tech of India is not for businessmen, it's for industrialists. So till the time industrialists don't look properly at this space and it doesn't become very interesting for them, it's not going to fly, according to me, because it's a very asset heavy game, right? How many cellular tech companies in India were formed by businessmen and not industrialists? It needs that kind of infra, it needs that kind of debt appetite to be taken. It needs a guy like Elon Musk, right? Correct. So I think the Tatas of India and Reliances and the Wipros of India are yet to look very seriously at this space. Probably it comes with a strong industrial application. For example, the internet coming from space, right? Starlink. So
Starlink.
let's say that flies
what is
like
Starlink,
crazy.
Paris, just for our viewers?
So it's a very interesting way. So right now, internet, the way it exists is that there are transatlantic cables, fiber optics, which reach every country at some points. From there, these network providers make internet available either through wires or through wireless transmitters. So these cell towers that you see, They are all connected through a big network, which eventually connects into that
Yeah.
transatlantic cable, right? That's how the world is connected right now. That's how internet has existed in the world for the longest time. Longest time, whatever, small time that it has existed.
Yeah.
So now the problem with this is, let's say there is an area which is extremely remote. Is it even feasible economically to send internet there?
Yeah.
Not in a lot of cases. It is not. For example, a lot of places in Africa, they cannot create that much economic value from internet that it doesn't make sense to send internet there. But now this guy comes into the picture, who is Elon Musk. He raises funding for this, and he says, "Why can't we bring internet from the space?"
Yeah.
The satellite is moving around.
Yeah.
It can cover much more land area. One satellite can cover a lot of area, and you only need a certain number of satellites to cover the whole Earth, and just make sure connectivity is from there. So that's what Starlink is doing.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking that if it really flies, then it has everyone's attention, right? Because it's a threat to the network that is built on the ground
Yeah.
and under the oceans. That's one application I can really think of. For example, navigation in this world, I think it's not monetized. Had it been monetized, a lot of stuff would have happened in space just to have a private network of navigation systems. Though India has its own indigenous system,
Yeah.
right now.
GLONASS. It's called GLONASS.
No, GLONASS is Russian.
GLONASS is
Some again very Indian name it has.
Isn't it?
Okay, some indigenous, there's a navigation system. So such industrial applications, as they keep coming, industrialists will look at it. These are the guys who have appetite. What is Gaganyaan's budget? 10,000 crores. Tata has much more debt on their cap table, right?
Yeah.
Sitting right now. They can raise 10,000 crores like this. If the project is going to make money over, let's say, 10 years.
I mean,
I think that will fly.
Right?
So I think such things will really fly Indian
But I
tech.
think what's going to
Yes.
happen when they see like there's an infrastructure level or infrastructure.
Exactly. That's what I'm
I
thinking.
mean, I agree with Paras, because even in the Western economies, it's always been defense wars. Why space budgets have been kind of been
Yeah.
there for each country. The first idea was between US and Russia that, hey, who's going to go up in the space first? And since then, it's always been about your defensive cover. Because right now, all the wars are being fought on the fact that, the reason why we built our own navigation system was if America decides to go on war with us and they change the GPS coordinates by 2 latitudes, right? It's going to fuck up each plane, each drone, everything. And the same thing is true for Russia, because these were the 2 major systems. We wanted to make sure that we don't fuck it up. And even the system that we have is just covers India and doesn't cover the whole world. So we first want to do enough satellites that covers the whole world, and we have the navigation system for that. So everything which was done on space was done from a defensive point of view. How do you make your country stronger? What in the past 2 decades has done, it's because of the likes of Amazon, Blue Origin, which has been there, SpaceX, Virgin Atlantic, all these big heavyweights and giants of people, right? Like billionaires of billionaires, people who themselves are worth a country. These guys have come in and said, hey, we can take charge of it because it moves humanity to a different level. When you hear any of those 3 people talk about what space can give out for you, right? It's about exploring more than it's just about. Right now it was about defense, now it's about exploration.
Yeah.
I think it's the exploration nature of India, right? Like, we're even the industrialists, when we take punts, we don't take punts on things which are not there. So that's what we have noticed. That's what my opinion is. Our punts are not, hey, we're going to change something in the future. Work might not work, like Map My Genome, right? Like that whole project that happened at the Johns Hopkins University and everything which got funded there. I don't see that happening in India. That kind of funding.
Exactly.
We see more on the revenue terms.
But that's even Elon Musk's model in SpaceX, right? That we are going to build the commercial front of SpaceX to nearby locations like launching orbits, etc., which funds the.
But I mean, he's on 22 years on, like, SpaceX is.
No, I'm partly agreeing to your point. I'm saying I don't exactly know.
Yeah.
Whatever commercial applications or the revenues that are being built in, are the profits really being used to fund those moonshots or not? SpaceX is doing it.
Let's
I don't know
talk about the
the
categories, no? Then how we can make money from space tech specifically. I see categories being developed as like what Blue Origin or this Virgin Galactic is doing.
Plasma.
Low Earth orbit space tourism.
Yeah.
Right? they would take the richest of the richest. They would take $200,000, $300,000 from anyone who is able to afford it, and they would give them a tour for a couple of hours, right? Probably, and Richard Branson also has a company called Zero G, which actually takes the rich guys up. Then they would make them experience zero gravity and how it is to be in space by taking their spacecraft like literally 35,000-40,000 feet and then getting into a free fall for a couple of minutes. So that is there. So one is tourism. The second is space imagery, right? We all are going through climate change. It's massive. It's a very big problem. It's going to be a $1 trillion industry in the next 10 to 15 years. Specifically, what people like, and there's a startup in India also called Pixel. So what they're doing is they're sending satellites out there, which would just do hyperspectral imagery. Now, what is hyperspectral imagery? You have your certain bandwidth of light scale in which you can see, right? You can see Vibgyor, that visible spectrum, but there are microwaves, there are infrared, you can't see it. So this hyperspectral imagery just captures images of the Earth in all those spectrum and essentially transmits data back to Earth for better knowledge of your own planet. And that data can be utilized by anyone. Whether that's a climate change company or a government or a district or whatever, right? And for any
disaster management.
So then it's data, beaming down data of imagery. And then there are, of course, these launch vehicles, which is you build the bloody rocket, you take care of the payload, and then you send satellites up, which will do variety of features, whether beam internet down there, beam telecom, XYZ. So I feel infrastructural level is not set up yet. It is couple of years down the line. Just like in Web3, once the infra layer or layer 1 solutions like the basic blockchains could be built up, then you would see layer 2 scaling solutions or XYZ. So I think India would actually bounce a lot on the layer 2 of the space tech rather than the layer 1, because I don't see industrialists kicking in with that kind, imagining those kind of revenue opportunities, because data play.
But they can later kick in, no? Like
They should.
Everyone wants their L1 blockchain.
Yeah.
So India now wants its own space infrastructure for their own companies to build on top of that. For example, like you were saying, imagery. Let's say there's an imagery infra already built. Now Indian startups are going on that and building that. Now let's say an Indian industrialist or the government itself comes in and says, we are going to give you the same kind of data. You use this, why are you using that? Or probably there is some interest in this. So
I think there can be two kind of thing that can definitely happen. One is related to imagery, is one, oil exploration, energy resources exploration.
Exactly. I can build shitloads of software on the imagery data
that can
itself.
happen. So that can be usable for commercial use definitely. And I think one of the big thing that we have already discussed also in the past is energy harvesting. Harvesting the energy of sun directly by going out there in the orbit,
Right.
and like beaming that energy back to the Earth.
Yeah.
So it's like very less. Why Starlink is faster and cheaper than any other internet service provider out there is because the transmission loss is very less.
Transfer losses.
If the transmission loss is very less, that can produce better solar energy. We can harvest better solar energy than what we can do on surface Earth. Right?
I think we discussed this when we were discussing Dyson Sphere.
energy is the biggest front. Agreed.
Energy is something the biggest front that can be related to like exploring the images on the surface of the Earth or harvesting the energy out there in the orbit.
Now coming back to the infrastructure level problem, I think the reason why Paras also said industrialists needs to come in, because look at the source of capital that should have come in to fund this. The source of capital either comes from the government. Government is already funding ISRO and they will continue to do so. But beyond that, the source of capital for a VC to come in needs to be a 10-year period. Space as an industry generally has seen like a 20, 15, 30 years gap. So they will not be able to recover the capital in itself.
Maybe we need a different type of VCs for the space industry.
Yeah, the fund cycle needs to be longer, right?
Yeah.
And the VCs should be able to raise money for a longer fund cycle to invest in the space tech.
Correct.
If the fund cycle is smaller, then they would need results faster so that they can actually cause an exit. So it's the source of money which is available for infrastructure to be developed.
Yeah.
And that might also mean the number of errors and trials and errors that will go through. Because when you're building hardware, and we all can agree to it, it's not easy. it's just gonna crash and burn a lot of
Plus,
things.
even countries want their own native infrastructures to be built in. People
Exactly.
won't be proud of UPI when payment infra in Russia went for a toss. Clearly, we were very happy that we have our own payment infra. No one can untwist this. For example, let's say there is an energy infra built on the space level.
Yeah.
All the electric vehicles on this planet, all the smartphone devices or the mobility devices, all laptops, everything is being charged wirelessly. We are all paying subscriptions, $1 a month for phone, $20 a month for my car.
Yeah.
No one needs charging, everything is happening wirelessly. Hypothetical scenario, which will definitely become reality according to me in 50, 60 years. But let's say this is happening. Now suddenly there is a conflict between two countries. One country says, I'll take you off the grid
Yeah, exactly.
because you are my enemy. Now, if energy comes into equation, everyone wants their native infrastructure, which is again then industrialists
Yeah,
come
you're
back.
right.
No one wants to lose power.
Paras, all I feel is, see, India could build software,
Yeah.
UPI, digital stack, right? But to build hardware, we still get our fighter jets from Russia or from other countries. Like that is a tough problem to solve, which we have not been able to solve in the last whatever 20, 30, 40 years.
We'll buy it, that's
Yeah,
okay.
because
we
we
still
can-
buy Ericsson transmitters and routers for our 5G network also, no?
Yeah.
But that's okay, but it is still our own. We buy a Rafale, but a country making Rafale can't switch it off.
So are you suggesting that India as a country can will definitely buy SpaceX rockets, then operate?
It's really about building your own
Yeah.
infra. It doesn't matter whether you really invented the hardware or not. I mean, it's good if you invent it because then you can export to the whole world.
Okay.
But even if you didn't, you
Right.
can still be in the race very
Can
much.
you imagine Infosys started in 80s and so did TCS and all these companies, and they became a service provider of software engineers to the world. India became the hub for software engineers. So it took 20, 30 years of doing that for us to be creative on those front. For hardware, it's never happened. We have never become the manufacturing hub. We have never actually decided to be the guys who build hardwares over a period of time. So if you don't have that, you're not processing the amount of engineers. Right now, each engineer who's coming out of a college knows basic level of coding. And over the 10 years, it's changing further and further. More and more engineers just want to do computer science than anything else. Because everyone knows there's a job opportunity at the end of it. So that's what I think is going to change. If there are more job opportunities, imagine a hardware engineer making the same as a software engineer in India, right? Like an SD2 making a crore. India will go after what gives them money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's not that matter, any country will.
Absolutely.
You've got the intellectual apple. He's
Yeah.
very right on that. Like,
Correct.
The smartest mind is doing a computer science course.
let's say 50 startups in India get funded 100 billion each for space tech.
Suddenly,
We'll have hardware engineers,
Yeah.
rocket
Yeah.
aerospace engineers in
For the
5
next
years.
10
5 years,
Sixth
yeah.
standard, the Central Board of Secondary Education, the curriculum which students learn from, they have introduced AI in 6th standard. How did that come from? Because of the demand of AI and the kind of jobs people are landing in US,
Yeah.
high-paying jobs as compared to other jobs.
Look at computer science being introduced, right? And that's like every kid wants.
Correct. I still remember when we were in school, computer science was an optional subject. It was not even the
And what were we taught? We would not even.
No, I took physical education, so that's out of the question.
But exactly, right? Like what we were even taught back in the day to what is being taught. Like right now, a fourth year, like a fourth class kid can code better than a 11th or 12th class average kid out there from back in our generation.
Yeah.
It's just because that's the demand. That's where the job is.
Yeah. I still feel that a lot of opportunity, later opportunity, will be on building software on top of other data which is already coming from the satellites up there and tapping it into the industry.
Absolutely.
So,
That's where the
I feel a lot of software.
that's where the
space
business
startups-
applications will be built, right?
Yeah.
Business use cases will be built.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. A lot of software space tech startups can be born out of India, specifically rather than the core hardware startups too.
But even that's
Yeah,
what
right,
like,
like-
India would not have 100 unicorns if Geo had not happened to us.
Yeah.
Correct.
So the infra really becomes the reason for those 100 unicorns to
Who will give that data, right? Who will provide you with
Yes.
the data?
See,
That's
there
the
are
question.
already thousands of satellites up there. What I just feel is that it's very tough to compete on hardware because this is
It's government
This is
related.
rocket science. It is not just any science. It's tough.
But India have had like one of the best scientists in the rocket space for the past few decades. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
I'm just realistically
kind of-
talking about the
Yeah.
next 10 years.
the
Let's say.
kind of engineers that ISC Bangalore is producing is definitely like top-notch research level.
So would you suggest a guy listening to this podcast to build a software startup in space tech or go for a hardware startup?
I would say for the next 10 years, space tech is a very lucrative and a very positive outlook is there, because government is putting their resources into it and so many private sector startups are coming into it. So based on the, how can you like direct someone towards the software and hardware when they have their hearts towards something? Like if they want to do hardware and they, I would want to say that if someone wants to pursue hardware, this is the correct time and the right time in space tech. Few years before, definitely they should have gone for software, but now the opportunities are going to open up in the coming years. So why not?
Makes
You
sense.
should definitely explore.
I would suggest for software. It's just very less working capital plus
You don't have
less
to.
asset.
You don't have to worry about working capital then.
No, if someone can really do coding, they really don't need any aerospace background, right? They have the raw data feed,
Yeah.
so it has nothing to do with aerospace actually.
Yeah.
It's more.
It's a software startup,
Yeah,
correct?
so that's more
It's a
like-
data analytics startup,
Yeah, data
more like
analytics.
that, or a business
Uber
use
is
case,
like-
which is
Uber is
cool.
not a taxi
Which is
company.
absolutely fine.
Uber is not a taxi company.
Which is
It's a
absolutely
tech
fine, but then if everyone was a coder, there would be no SpaceX, there would be no Tesla.
But
The
Uber,
world
Uber
needs
was
its,
formed. But Uber was formed when there was the infra called internet. There was
Right.
an infra deep integration of mobiles in human life, right? So even if someone wants to build software in the space tech, there needs to be enough.
The only
infra in
person
the space.
who can do this is an ISRO scientist who knows enough data points to build a software tech on top of it. Because most of the data which is available for these guys to build things on is not publicly available information. Because like 95% of the work which has been done in space tech has been done by different governments. And that government data is, as we know, is a lot of red tapeism and a lot of things which we don't even know which has been done.
Yeah.
We don't
But
have enough
I'm
satellites.
sure like defense will not still be the leading sector in space tech because
Always.
I mean, the moment you put a missile in orbit, I mean it just gets crazy from there, right?
It
I'm
is,
not
yeah.
sure if anyone has
Sure.
put yet have they.
They have been.
I'm sure
saying
it
for
is.
a while. I'm pretty sure if they have no one's gonna
Missiles there.
No one's going to put their position out there because then it's going to be a race to put satellites into orbit.
Exactly.
I'm saying if that race begins, that practically becomes the biggest use case for pushing space tech.
I mean, they signed up a treaty, right? Like during the Cold War back in the
I'm
day.
sure they must be.
Not to put up rockets in the space because the space as an area was considered to be everyone's own, other than just directly above your country. But even
That is
at
also till a certain
threshold, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's everyone's. So even if I'm pretty sure it's and it's basically 2 countries in the world who can do this, right? Like 3 now, China, like we can't forget that 3 countries in the world who can do that, put satellites or like missiles and all of those. They wouldn't want to vouch their opinion because that's their Hail Mary.
Yeah. Would we have nuclear reactors revolving around Earth ever?
I think so.
Why put it on the ground?
Perfect. Thanks a lot, guys. Don't forget to press the bell icon so that you get to know about the new episodes that we are launching, and don't forget to
Like,
Share.
Subscribe.
thank you
And
comment and comment.
and we touched 1,000 subscribers.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
there's 1,000 subscribers. Thanks a lot, Synapse Pod fam. Heart goes out to you guys.
Do leave comments on what you think we should be speaking on, and if there's anything which you would want any one particular of us to discuss, we would be happy to actually have a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll read about it.
Yeah. I mean, we will do a week of research and read up on it before we start talking.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot. See ya. Bye.
Thanks.